Warning, this episode contains strong language or mature themes. Parental discretion is advised.
Yay, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Alright.
Welcome to this podcast is Uncalled For.
What's uncalled for about it?
Well, you can't tell anybody this.
I'm listening.
Oh my God, what are you doing?
Don't be ashamed to be a supporter of Barack Obama for the next 2 years or for the rest of your lives, because you should be proud of what you've done.
I worship Cthulhu just for the free beer.
But you didn't even give a chance for a wild card spot.
Well, the name of this podcast is Stuff Uncalled For?
This podcast is uncalled.
Podcast, all right.
Yeah, that was the most ridiculous ending to that game that I've ever seen.
Oh my gosh, I gotta hurry up. Oh my gosh, I gotta hurry up. Oh my gosh, I gotta hurry up.
We're looking at each other in the eye. We're not going to say anything derogatory to the other person. And, of course, neither of us is drunk.
Another thing that differentiates Mormonism from Catholicism is I don't hear Pope Francis saying that he's a prophet, seer, and revelator.
See, this is a disgrace.
Hey, we're getting somewhere.
And now, your host for this podcast, Mike Chernefsky.
Fuji!
Welcome to the podcast. So today's guest is one I'm really excited about. He volunteered for Bernie Sanders in 2016 and is doing so again in 2020. But he's also someone who stepped up and volunteered to help me out for my failed run for the Kansas Senate in 2016. And today we're going to talk a little more in detail about that. As a good primer, please listen to our last episode, my thoughts on the 2016 election. Please welcome Mr. Andrew Rainey to the podcast. All right. So, for those who are listening who have no idea who you are, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Oh yes, my name's Andrew Rainey. I was a super volunteer with Bernie in 2016. I was also a district delegate and a co-captain of the Senate District 21 caucus. You probably remember me if I was there. A lot loud at the end, it's in the green suit. And yeah, I'm also a Democratic committeeman now as well in Overland Park, Ward 2, Precinct 6. And just heading to Iowa this weekend and stuff to get going on the campaign again. And I'm also involved, or try to be involved with some other groups, the Brent Welder campaign, Our Revolution, KC, ACLU, voting rights, criminal justice, and trying to stay active best I can.
All right, cool. Yeah, the primary thing we're going to talk about today is that 2016 caucus. I understand they're doing away with caucuses in 2020, finally. Because the thing about caucuses is it's a lot of people either standing in line, waiting to get in to a venue that's probably too small to fit everybody, or being crammed into said venue.
Yeah, there's pros and cons. I know one person was talking about how all the Republicans had grabbed up all the good spots beforehand. Someone was saying, yeah, they do get crowded, and yeah, it's kind of hard for especially some people with various issues to kind of stay there during the whole thing. I know just in general, a lot of people were really wanting to get their votes counted and leave. And but yeah, we did have timelines set up on that, which was what I was enforcing basically with my phone ring and stuff. But yeah, we're doing us in Hawaii are also doing a ranked choice this year as well, so you can list all your choices, and then if the first one doesn't reach viability, it will go with your second vote, and so on and so forth. And but yeah, I think Vicky Hyatt was who I talked to about that. Still had a bunch of questions, kind of see how it'd work this year and stuff, and if we would have like campaign oversight and stuff, or it'd be completely party ran. And I think they're also needing some money to be able to run it because it's completely party ran. So, yeah.
All right. But about that 2016 caucus specifically, because that's where we first heard about each other. What was some of your recollection of what happened that particular day?
I mean, there was a lot going on, but yeah, originally got there and was basically just walking around a bunch trying to figure out what's going on. I know one of the first things I noticed is they ran out of wristbands for the newly registered, so that'd be first-time voters, independents, or I think it was just independents. But yeah, people switching over, and so yeah, that was one of the first things I noticed was messed up, tried to resolve. There's cops there for some reason. I never figured out over what. I think there was a missing child in the mess. I think that was my best guess on that one. And then, yeah, I just remember a lot of people getting antsy, were wanting their votes to count. I remember Roberta Eveslake actually approached me. She's a Clinton supporter, but yeah, I mean, kind of just trying to help everyone out. Yeah, she was really one of the ones pressuring me to do something about it and all that, because I was co-captain. And then, yeah, I remember at one point our box of buttons got stolen, and there was an extra captain's badge in there that I guess someone who apparently looked like me and was telling people to do the opposite of what I was telling them to do, was and stay inside. Got a hold of that. Still never figured out who that was. And yeah, I think I just mentioned last time as well. I know there's 4 people in wheelchairs, Bernie supporters, who weren't able to make it out to the field. And they were kind of concerned whether or not their votes were cast. And yeah, it just kind of got pretty hectic. I actually didn't do my job, so to speak, but I was supposed to be counting Hillary heads as well as another counter. And we both ended up out in the field. And then, of course, Bill got all the votes counted out in the field, so I ended up basically just at the Bernie count, roughly. So, yeah, I know the numbers seemed a little bit off. The Bernie count seemed about right, about dead on, but that's the only one I can really attest to. Tried to appoint some scouts or whatever to go just get a jelly bean count. I had to meet the one lady, and she verified that she did indeed count the Hillary heads too. So, but I mean, there's just a lot going on. I could go on forever about it. I just don't know where to begin. Any particular questions?
Well, of course, I remember you and Diane allowing me to speak to all those supporters in the field, because I was denied the opportunity to do so inside. And I think we've talked about this a little bit. There were some shenanigans going on there as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, one of the general problems they had is kind of like a filibuster thing throughout the state. I think people were just dragging on the caucuses a little bit long. I think they kind of wanted the opportunity to talk to everyone, but not everyone there was. A lot of people there, most people there, just wanted to get their votes counted and get out. You know, it wasn't all insiders. But yeah, I'm glad you're able to speak. I know we had a microphone, we had no batteries. Tried to get someone to get batteries, and then someone else had a microphone. But I'm glad someone found it. But yeah, I do remember you. Do remember speaking in the field when I started counting votes, so to speak. Everyone lined up, and it was a really nice feeling once we got to the field. Just out of that, get what I was saying, like cattle's in a pen. But yeah, it's just a breath of fresh air, literally. It's just so nice to get to that field and get things going. But yeah, the podium issues, as I mentioned last time as well, it was just like we didn't have the opportunity to. We ended up 2-1, but I remember all the Clinton delegates giving their speeches to try to get their delegate selection, and we were told to sit in the corner and pick our delegates, basically. And yeah, I was pretty irate about that, but you know, I could just slam my bag down on that one and just kind of calm myself. I remember speaking to the captain, I got back inside too about it, and she's like, well, we had to do something. I still don't know what that means, what was going on there. Just tried to keep track of everything best I could. And yeah, something else I was thinking about, but I forgot it.
Well, I remember on the speech side, nobody came to get me to give the speech. They gave the speeches, and nobody came to get me. I wound up having to find a couple of volunteers, and they said, yeah, they gave the speeches already. Like, what the? That's a bit of a slap in the face and an insult. And
yeah, by the time you were actually speaking too, because I had alarms set on my phone, which coincided with the Kansas Democratic Party rules on when votes were supposed to start being counted. And then, of course, I remember when I was bringing people to the field, I believe it was Bill or Mr. Walsh who was like, well, if you do this, you threaten your votes not being counted, which was, yeah. I just mentioned that out loud, and some people approached him to discuss that and stuff, but I mean, that was trying to invalidate votes, or I don't know. But yeah, I know we discussed the conflict of interest there a little bit, and I know another thing you spoke about last time was one of the volunteers outside, like, oh, you have to sign this petition to get inside the caucus. Even if he was just joking, that's just something not to joke about, you know. I mean, someone could take it seriously and stuff, like, yeah, it's kind of like, what is that character from Guardians of the Galaxy who takes everything literally? Those people are out there, like, they could have taken it literally. But, yeah.
Yeah, that was just weird hearing that story about the volunteer.
Yeah.
But then again, everything about my opponent's campaign, I don't know. I think the best way to describe it would probably be on one level disrespectful and another level definitely money-filled. We are talking about someone who went to Shawnee Mission East, running in a district that's largely Shawnee Mission West territory. And for those of you who are listening on the podcast, Shawnee Mission East has a certain reputation about it. And I think Andrew knows what that reputation
You're
is.
speaking
right?
there a little bit hoity-toity or whatever and well off, I believe. I don't know if I've been there. I just kind of know Shawnee Mission West and South, and most of the district sprawls out west. I don't even know what high school district that would be out there. You know, like the western part of Senate 21. It's kind of a lot of development, newer stuff. But yeah, when we got that part of Overland Park, around Shawnee Mission West, that's kind of tied in there. It got redrawn a while ago. Yeah, 21 used to basically, I think, be more or less Overland Park. Then they just took that one part of Overland Park, and it's more or less like
21 was newly created with the last census. Yeah. But in terms of where East is, 75th and Mission is where it's located, right in the middle of Prairie Village, and yeah, it caters to the wealthier neighborhoods in that part of town. And yeah, I think further west you're getting into DeSoto School District territory. Mill Valley High School is part of DeSoto, and that's out in the western Shawnee and everything. So.
Yeah, I remember you'd mentioned it frequently that one of the canvassers came to your door, and you thought that was pretty disrespectful. Like they were just...
I wasn't even home for that.
Like they weren't running against anyone. I think you were the first to file in the state and stuff too. And yeah, that's kind of a weird thing. Like, but yeah, it's this thing. Who knows on that one? I mean, it wasn't Logan himself. It could just been one of his volunteers, and they cut the turf, and we're not aware of it and stuff. But yeah, I don't know when he announced his campaign. I think he announced it at the caucus, perhaps.
The first I heard about it was that's January. I got a call before a second Saturday from Nancy Liker informing me you have a primary opponent. So yeah, not only we're talking about a kid that went to a rich kid's school, we're talking about basically he's a kid.
Yeah, I know it's one of the criticisms. He's up and stuff, but yeah. I remember as well his family's been involved in politics for a while and stuff. And, yeah, I don't know that.
Yeah. But yeah, very disrespectful, especially in terms of life experience. Here's his father going to campaign events, touting his son's life experience. I'm 37 at this point. All right, I'm 41 now, but I was 37.
Mom intern and all that. Yeah, I mean, that's just one of those typical conflict of interest things, which was real big in 2016 in the presidential primary and stuff. And even myself, I got to kind of like, as I was saying last time, kind of wear two hats. Like I'm a committeeman, but I'm also there, so I kind of have to rescue myself from stuff. Like I'd use an example when I was at a door in my precinct, and they were talking presidential politics and wanted feedback, and I just had to sit there and stay neutral on the whole thing because I was there a different hat or different introduction and stuff. So But yeah, it can be hard to keep that stuff separate, and I think you just kind of have to rescue yourself, as they say, from it, and just kind of keep your mouth shut, so to speak, or don't go into things when you're. But yeah, what's Bill Rausch's role now? He's like co-chair or something. He's got an executive role of some sort at the party. So.
Oh, the executive board.
Yeah, like
so how
Chris Morrow got elected. I remember when I went there and cast my vote, and then
How that's worked. It's worked by first you have the 4 officers, and the only hard and fast rule is that the chair and the vice chair have to be opposite genders.
Yeah, that's a typical one. It's just like our committee people, one man, one woman here.
And then the rest of the E board is made up of 2 volunteers, 1 male, 1 female from each Senate district. And I was trying to get on the board that's 2016, trying to get on it again because I had been on the E board from 06 to 10, which coincided with when Gene Reardon was in Topeka, to make sure that what happened to me didn't happen to anyone else. Mm-hmm. And of all people, Bill Rausch torpedoed me and used the fact that I supported Dinah against me.
Yeah, I remember speaking on that one. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, people get those primaries, and they get hung up on it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'd seen Diana was up at the Capitol. Had stopped by their office when I was there with Equality Kansas after Stephanie left us and stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was definitely very hard at work when I saw her. I can tell. But yeah, I mentioned your name as well and stuff. Yeah, said hi. Of course, yeah, we talked a little bit last time too about got national news. But yeah, her and Clayton and Boulier and that switch and all that.
Which, I'll say again, that switch did not surprise me in the slightest, because having got to know Dinah during that whole campaign session, and she got volunteers from the Smith campaign coming to her house and had an epic response for them. I'm voting for Diana Sykes because I'm Diana Sykes. was basically the response. But hearing her talk, I could tell this woman's not a Republican. She could be a Democrat.
Yeah, more middle of the road. A lot of those can just go either way, and it just kind of depends on where they think it might be better off for them and stuff. But yeah, definitely need to welcome to the party and stuff. This is kind of what you do when you got to do things for the party. I mean, you got to really stay neutral. You got to think about everyone. You got to can't have your biases and stuff. And it gets weird with the primaries. But
well, my bias was. Bill Rausch, your kid fucked me over. All right.
Yeah, sounds like some nasty campaign techniques, which are all too commonplace nowadays. There's really a lack of civility. It seems like no one can. But yeah, there was definitely some shenanigans there. It sounds like, and I remember definitely in 2016, even that caucus. It sounds like there was some shenanigans and such. But
definitely.
Yeah.
I also remember not getting any support from the education lobby, and I've told you this before, because Healy pretty much paid for the lobby.
Yeah, through donations and stuff. Mm-hmm. You have to look into that and run out the campaign finances. I remember I saw him at the climate strike and stuff, and he was attacking Diana about some of her donations and stuff, and then, that was weird. Went to the environmental meeting next,
And it's time to call out names too. Kansas Families for Education. That's the big group that needs to be called out. Anytime the last few years, I've heard basically a noun of urban education. That tells me that those particular candidates really don't have much to talk about, and that's a problem.
That's just something, it's one of the reasons I like Bernie too. I mean, it's just a general thing in politics, and it's what a lot of the pundits and advisors keep telling you to do is never take a stance on anything, just keep it bland so you can shift, or I don't know why they do that, but that's one thing I did like about your campaign. You got there and you had listed all your issues and where you standed on everything, and there's a great deal of detail compared to this general kind of establishment, I guess, or typical status quo kind of just keep it bland, not really say anything, and like, who would really want to vote on that? What are you voting on at that point?
Right.
Like image or something? And but yeah, I know he definitely ran around and racked up all the endorsements and stuff. Like I had talked to one guy and stuff, and yeah, he was with the union as well, and yeah, he had gone through the union, and the union endorsed him, and yeah. But
I remember, since you mentioned the unions, Peter is his first name. He has a pretty difficult last name. Yeah,
that's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
It's one of our,
I actually met him at the La Mexican barbecue that summer. Very good barbecue, by the way. Thank you, Peter. He informed me via Facebook. Yeah, the union's endorsing Healy, but they never reached out to me or anything. So that's
no, they usually won't. Yeah, it's kind of all who does that thing, and yeah, they'll go through them the top down, so to speak. Like, yeah, usually in all campaign, I'm always at doors or just in crowds or just with my own contacts, and yeah, definitely more of a ground up person and stuff. But yeah, like I'd rather reach out to union members and stuff. This is a big theme I remember too, just from 2016, just how a organization would vote for our opponent, why its members overwhelmingly supported us, and it's like, what is that about? You know, like I don't know. I see that theme a lot. It's kind of a general struggle, like from people against like power, so to speak. And, yeah, brass or leadership or whatever, money. Yeah, it's just kind of one of those things, man.
right. As for how I found out about the Kansas Families for Education thing, I remember sitting with Nancy Liker at Washington Days, actually, in 2016. We were sitting down at the Southeast Kansas Democrats. They always do a big barbecue thing for everybody. It's really good stuff. A very good chance to go to Washington Days. Definitely check that out. But I was talking with Nancy during that, and she informed. I was like, "That's interesting that the Kansas Families people are out there helping Healy out," and she was like, "Yeah, that's because Healy bought them."
Yeah, could be. I have to look into that one, man. What's going on?
Right.
Yeah, I just remember also the last time city council meetings and stuff like that, getting people involved in that, and how they can just get on their phone or whatever, or a computer and watch it from afar. That was kind of one of the good things I know he pushed forward stuff. But yeah, the Kansas, what was it again?
Kansas Families for Education.
Yeah, we'll look into that one. Yeah, there's all those different groups there. I've never really been known to really follow them all that much. Always just been much more about kind of the grassroots from the people at the doors and stuff.
And of course, we were talking about the whole city council thing. I think it's ridiculous that he basically parlayed screwing me over into getting a seat on the Oakland Park City Council.
How'd that happen? Or like parlayed? Yeah, I don't know much about that race. I remember we were talking about last time. We were talking about Holly and Grummett.
This was the most recent race where she unseated Terry Habershire, who coincidentally I ran against in 2007 for that seat, and then Terry beat me fair and square, and I was actually slightly older that year than Healy is. And people are criticizing me as being too young then. All right, I was only like 27, 28. So.
Yeah, but then we were talking about your neighborhood and how they took that lot, took down the tree. But the other lady who was running against Holly in the primary, I'm trying to remember her name.
Was it Taryn?
I believe so. She had actually came and checked out the area and stuff. Oh. That's what you had said last time.
I'm glad I voted for her in the primary then.
Yeah, I could look it up on, try and get her name. Oh, man, you had remembered it last time. But yeah, they had, the whole neighborhood was against that. And
we still are.
Yeah, and then they just come in. They basically rezoned the area, which allowed it to be developed. And then the first thing they did was cut down that tree that's older than the city, I think.
Yeah,
How old that thing
my
was.
mother called it the old snake tree.
Old snake tree, yeah.
And they're also going to tear down, you saw that little forests.
Oh,
right there.
yeah.
They're tearing that out, too.
They're taking all that greenery out.
Yeah, they're taking all the greenery out.
Yeah, I know. I talked to Logan about it. He had mentioned the protest petition, which did you...
I signed it.
Yeah, they all... So, yeah, I know there's another one, too, we were talking about where they got a protest petition and they had shut something down by protest petition, and the lawyers come back in and file again saying that they're going to remodify it. And just how difficult it is, when you're job, school, and kids and whatnot, to have to, be up against that stuff when they're getting paid the big bucks and it's their job. Like, let's say city staff and just all these lawyers and stuff. And that's what they do for a living. And then you got to, in your spare time, find a way to organize and go up against all that. And it's just, it's your neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not theirs.
It's my neighborhood, and my house happens to be right next to the lot.
Yeah, if the neighborhood was overwhelmingly against it, then, how could you, there's other places to develop and stuff. And at a certain point, you just keep building forever. But, yeah.
Now, I don't mind stuff going up in downtown like it has, because I've always been a firm believer that a healthy downtown is critical. I believe that pretty much regardless. That's why I'm for downtown ballpark in Kansas City, for example. That's why I don't have a problem with these mini high-rises going up in downtown, because it's bringing housing, but not affordable housing, unfortunately.
That's the thing. I remember a guy at the last city council, too. I think he was staff, but yeah, he just mentioned, like, someone mentioned affordable housing. He was like, well, by design, it's not affordable housing because you're raising it's meant to be expensive. It's luxury
But it's also
apartments,
mixed,
as they say.
It's also mixed-use developments, because on that ground level, you can have shops and everything. I really want to check out, what's it called, the Strang Hall that just opened up in one of those mini high-rises. It's supposed to be like a food hall, kind of like
like cafeteria.
Kind of like a food court type situation, yeah. So.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to check out. I know a lot of the theory on the mixed use or whatever is that you can don't have to have a car. You're going to be able to walk everywhere. That was one of the big incentives to it and everything. But yeah, just downtown OP. I heard a lot of opinions on that. A lot of it was just kind of the design or the architecture and how it didn't really blend in with the historic feeling. So kind of an aesthetic complaint to it. I had met one property owner too who was worried about their basically being able to afford rent on their business. I think I'd overheard her talking about that. There's some other things, but yeah, it's no easy thing trying to figure out where to put stuff and everything. And then of course the TIFs and all the financing get a lot of attention and stuff too. And yeah, it's a weird thing. I just started trying to look into that and jump into all that, but yeah, you have to go on forever. The Senate 21 caucus, I think, was what you wanted to talk about. Anything we missed, we went over last time, we didn't.
And for those listening at home, what we're talking about last time, we actually recorded this a couple of days ago, but because of circumstances beyond my control, we aren't able to use the audio, so we're back.
Yeah, it was my soft voice in the background of Panera. You can go through and try to, but yeah.
Well, I do remember telling, after we were done in the fields, telling Diane and at least one other person just how offended I was about what had happened. These people are intentionally ignoring me, and this is also coming off the Pitch doing their piece on the Senate 21 race, which at the time there were only... It wound up being 5 candidates, but only 3 were on the ballot at the time. Me,
great.
Dinah, and Greg Smith.
And then also the other Mike. I know you had confronted him. I talked to him a little bit. But yeah, he ended up getting, I think, 7% of the vote.
Oh, wow.
In the general. Yeah. Yeah, that was the Libertarians. It was a 5-way race. 2 on each primary side, and then the third wheel there.
Yeah. I'm just glad Greg Smith got out of there.
Yeah, I know. And the last time we had talked about what had happened to his daughter and all that, how it kind of got milked or whatever. But it also kind of led to like the Kelsey Act and all that stuff, which was kind of became a surveillance issue and stuff. Like even if you wanted to use it for that, like where does it stop? Those kind of my concerns. Like I don't think anyone would have a problem with finding that phone immediately, but then what else happens, from there once you open that door? Yeah, there's a lot of that going on, I think, but kind of in his platform is what I remember just looking at it. But yeah.
Yeah, never mind that running on someone's death is probably one of the most reprehensible things that a person can do.
Yeah.
Greg Smith is not a nice guy, like, at all. All right, I still have YouTube video of him getting in the face of Tim Owens about something, saying, "You got a lot of explaining to do."
Yeah, I've seen that. I remember even saw one when I was up in where gentlemen stand up. It's a general authoritarian thing where they'll try and use force to get their way. They won't be able to talk, but they'll get angry. They'll point. They'll use force to resolve issues, authority, and they don't, like even if we're looking at policy on his daughter's death and how we could prevent that from ever happening again, there's other options than basically essentially developing a police state. But that's just kind of an authoritarian
Greg
thing.
Smith, one of the reasons now it's now legal to conceal carry in the state of Kansas without permits. I guarantee you, Greg Smith was part of that. So.
Yeah, I gotta get you up. That's the whole other podcast, gun. So I know we talked about it, but yeah, a whole other thing on that. But I don't know if it is. I thought you still have to have a concealed carry now, but no, you don't now. Someone said you see. Yeah, you're going to gun show a couple weeks ago. Just kind of check it out. Yeah, one guy's talking about it, and there's just so much work to do just sort of explaining what those laws are and going over them all. It'd be cool on the podcast. But yeah, the caucus, trying to see anything else there I've got to talk about.
I think I talked about everything that happened at that caucus.
Yeah, it definitely got crazy. Oh, I remember last time I had mentioned that me and the captain had gone in beforehand, and in case we needed overflow, which we were kind of expecting, but they had told to use the backstage in that room, and then I had gone to try to access that room, and a man stopped me and said that we were not able to access that room. But there was overflow there that we weren't able to utilize, so I don't know what was going on there. But yeah, we're essentially being intentionally cattled. But yeah, I know that's a little speech I gave too, like we are not cattles and pins, when I was losing it, I guess, but I was just trying to do something. There's just people walking out the door, and it's kind of like people walking out your party, and you just don't want that to happen, so trying to get something done. But yeah, you had mentioned, there's a follow-up question I wanted to ask you, but I forgot it at the moment.
I was just thinking, the whole thing that happened with me happened again 2 years later in a state house race. Calcara, Woodard.
Yeah, Matthew Calcara and Woodard. Yeah, I had heard quite a few things about that and everything. Yeah, how that was. Yep, I know. And then he was president of the Young Democrats. I know we talked about that last time. They resigned, someone took over, but are you using that as a springboard for your campaign? Stuff like that. And we had also talked about other fellow had left us. Was he the head of the Kansas Young Democrats?
It was actually called the Kansas City Young Democrats.
Okay,
and that was my late friend, Mr. Ryland Lundy.
Yeah,
I feel the YDs, at least the time that I was in their very progressive group and everything, when Ryland died, I feel that the soul of the Young Democrats died with him.
Yeah.
And they were pretty much inactive until about the time we're talking about. And you have these Republican light guys like a Woodard, like a Healy, all of a sudden.
Yeah, we had talked about that too. And it was another party official who had approached me actually because they were trying to find someone to head up the Young Democrats. My health, I believe, was pretty much fading at the time, or was about to. Well, the podcast, but yeah, just looking at the party, you would want to look at. Just, I guess, use presidential politics, for instance, who energized the youth, So it's probably why that person, for the best of the party, went and approached me, because, we had all the millennial support basically are the youth. So for the good of the party, you really want to have someone like that, or like a Bernie-crat, so to speak, in that role to kind of try to energize the youth of the party. But yeah, when you get someone from the other wing there, it's just not, just in a neutral sense, and I believe this person, as I said, I believe is a Clinton supporter too, is approaching a Bernie-crat on this issue, just for the health of the party. But yeah, it's one of those things. There's all sorts of shenanigans. It's power play, it's kind of politics, and people get hung up in the power of it all.
It didn't help that Woodard was one of those volunteers that we were talking about that seeking the petition.
Yeah, he might have even. I can't remember. I don't think he was the guy, but yeah, I remember they had all their clipboards and were petitioning right there in caucus and had it planned. And yeah, you have to announce before you start running and stuff. That's just a big problem I notice with the campaign laws and stuff. All these stealth campaigns where they be planning it forever. They'll basically be running it, and then when they announce, they announced a while ago. But yeah, something to keep in mind too. I know we had talked about I think we talked about that off podcast, but the sheriff's race. I know Democrats have run for sheriff and stuff usually. But yeah, the caucus definitely was
not the best of experiences. I don't think so.
No, but we did get a lot of people to turn out there, and we had a line out the door of either people new to the party or visiting the party or potentially looking to join the party, and it was a good opportunity. But yeah, it definitely got a little hairy, for sure. Yeah, very few things that ever make me lose my cool, and a lot of the things that I was seeing there were definitely made me to do something about it. But yeah, we did get out there, and I guess it did get done. And yeah, I remember a lot of KDP officials thanking me afterwards. I actually got a little heart I still have. Good job, you. Pink, call not cardboard, but kind of the recycled paper. But yeah, a lot of them approached me and thanked me, especially the younger ones, because they said I was just enforcing party rules. And but yeah, it can be hard sometimes. People get nasty and they don't want to sit down and talk, and they get into their own little camps and forget it's one big tent party and stuff. And yeah, it's good to have our own kind of factions within it. Like I always say, like both parties are kind of full of mini parties, so to speak. And
I think it was Robert Reich. He was Clinton's labor secretary, I think, and he did a very nice video explaining the factions within both the Republican and Democratic parties, and basically broke it up to 6 groups. The 6th was Donnie Dumbfuck over there, getting himself impeached and now trying to start a war.
Yeah, it seems like a new faction, and definitely have a little bit more of I'd have to study that one. Yeah, it's a new one. My favorite are always the Paulites, as you probably went over. But yeah, the ones I usually hang out on the right and stuff. And, moderates are kind of almost nonpartisan, you can go either way and stuff. But there's kind of this false moderate thing going on a lot too, where it's kind of corporatist and big money, and the moderate, so to speak, is just where some billionaire decides to dump a bunch of money into both sides, and they're both the spectrum of debate and kind of false divides things, stuff like that.
And that's the biggest problem with our media right now, is that pretty much all of our media is corporately owned.
Yeah, and Bernie said about 6 companies own 95% of the media or something like that at this point. And he showed I think there's a meme about it too, but just how long that's come from, like since the 70s and stuff. But yeah, power is consolidating, especially in a financial sense, especially since Reagan and stuff too. I mean, the separation of the classes has just grown extreme to where you got all those numbers to spout off, but I mean, it's there's definitely a solidification of power in a financial sense, and then money's not everything, but there's definitely too much of a concentration, which is ironic because a lot of the anti-government people, that's what they're worried about, is the government becoming too powerful. And we're sitting here looking at the money and corporations becoming way too powerful, and it's like, well, I mean, it's about power, really, right? It's not about...
Yeah. It's not about doing the right thing for regular people like you and me, but protecting existing power and wealth in the hands
making
of
sure they
an
can
elite.
keep a hand over things. Pretty much own the government right now too, but campaign finance reform is a big one. But yeah, just the people too. It's not like they have much of a voice. It seems like it's the numbers have gone down as far as voter participation. I think where we're at now, presidential elections will usually get us to a peak of some sort, but people fade off, and a lot of people are. We talked about last time too, not really partisan anymore. I kind of looked have some old numbers with my generation, but the millennials in particular were over half. I think it might have been 60% do not identify with either party. So
Wow.
there's
Yeah, that
definitely
includes my siblings, actually. Going back to the neighborhood thing for a second, I was really too busy with work and everything to really pay attention to what was going on. But both my brother and sister, whom I live with, were very much involved. In fact, it's the most involved I've ever seen them in politics. They're usually very apolitical. And
and then the neighborhood protests really got them involved.
Yeah.
I know we talked a little bit like that. I think I mentioned pot kind of as an issue. But some of those single issues that get people involved, it's kind of a real good place to start. When they got involved. It's one of the things I always try to focus on is getting those people who aren't involved to be involved, because, they really need a voice, and they're kind of important. It's a lot of the things the pundits don't look after. They'll just look at those regular voters, and they'll play that game, and they just ignore, sometimes even actively suppress those who don't vote or are new to voting. They don't, because they have the game set up, and they'd rather shrink it and maintain more control and expand it and have it'd be nice to see the whole country register and be able to go out and vote. And I talked about that with like automatic voter registration and things like that. But I think that's really what it's all about. Expanding access to democracy, just getting people involved, and even where I'm at too, I'm trying to slowly get out of the campaign mode and get around those council meetings and get to the state capitol and kind of see what's going on the legislative side. I think a lot more people, even these council meetings have been around some, and they're like, we haven't seen this many people in a while. It's usually a kind of ghost towns, so to speak. There's a few issues, like the NDOs drew big crowds, the development stuff's drawing big crowds. And,
all right. So we'll close just getting off politics for a second, get into podcasting, because you had expressed to me that you were looking into getting into podcasting.
I was just thinking about setting up a podcast. I know there's a lot the Bernie campaign stuff too, just stuff to listen to. But when we're driving around and stuff, it'd be nice to get something set up here soon so people can kind of check in, see what we're up to and everything, and maybe conduct some interviews and stuff with people on the spot. And just back to media, I think this is a really kind of cool grassroots media to have out there, and people can have different ways to kind of see what's going on in the world. Compared to mainstream media, the internet's got some good stuff. There's a lot of trolling and misinformation there. If anyone's been on there, it's pretty overhead sometimes. But I should look into getting that set up soon here. Should have something going, hopefully here before too long. So be around.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and of course, I am a consultant for podcasting. So if you need help, just let me know.
Yeah, I'll be in touch. Hit you up whenever I try to get this stuff going. Super busy. Make to-do lists so you can keep track of everything in your head. All right. Well, catch everyone later.
So a huge thank you to Andrew for being on the podcast today, and best of luck in his podcasting efforts. I want to take an opportunity right now to invite State Senator Dinah Sykes and renew my invitation to Mike Kerner to appear on this podcast at some point. Ways that you can help the podcast. Well, subscribe to the podcast. Tell your friends about it. Check out our blog, uncalledfor.home.blog. Follow us and like us on Facebook. Facebook.com/uncalledforpodcast. And let's keep up the good work. Until next time, stay safe and let's not hate each other. This podcast is Uncalled For, was hosted, produced, and edited by myself, Mike Chernevsky. Opening music is Fantasia Fantasia by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. Outro music is Trace It Back by Grunwasser. Licensed under Creative Commons. Attribution, not commercial, no derivatives, 4.0 license. Additional music includes Morocco Sting by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license.
If you would like to support this podcast or any of Mike's other creative endeavors, please consider making a donation at patreon.com/Mike Chernevsky. That's MikeCzerniewski. Donations over $5 will receive a special thanks on a future podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next time.